Amid the misty mountains, where only the wind whispers through the dry reeds, during an ongoing criminal raid, a young woman is found, unconscious among the vast fields of grass. No one knows. The man who saved her is actually James's close friend. Diep, the girl thought to be gone, has survived in this dangerous borderland, taken in by Lee, though neither of them realizes the other's true identity. There were moments when James and Diep were so close, yet fate still kept them apart. Join me in today's episode, where Diep returns and destiny begins to turn once more. If you too believe that true love will always find its way home, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel so we can continue the journey of James and Diep together in the next episode. Early in the morning, the sunlight had yet to pierce through the thick fog blanketing the mountainside. Inside a small room, Officer Lee adjusted the buttons on his uniform, his stern reflection staring back at him from the mirror. The golden stars gleaming on his shoulders were more than just symbols of duty. They were the embodiment of the faith he had carried through years of facing danger. Together with his team, Lee set out on a mission to survey the border region, a place locals called the Forbidden Zone, where drug traffickers lurked in every shadow. The narrow path wound between steep cliffs, overgrown with dense trees. The wind howled through the branches, carrying an eerie whisper. Reaching the cave area, Lee crouched to examine the traces on the ground. A few white crystals scattered in the dirt, an empty cigarette pack, dried bamboo tubes coated in sand, all remnants of a drug party recently dispersed. He frowned, his voice low and firm. "We just need to get past this point. We'll see exactly where they've been gathering." The team spread out, eyes following every faint footprint in the grass. Lee looked up. Before him stretched an endless forest, dark and silent, as if hiding something within its depths. Suddenly, a shout broke the stillness. "Sir, I think someone's lying over here." Lee turned and rushed toward the voice. Amid the tall reeds, a young woman lay motionless, her face streaked with dirt. He knelt beside her, pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Her pulse was faint but still there. "Miss, can you hear me?" No answer. Only the soft whistle of wind sweeping across the hills. Carefully, Lee lifted her into his arms. His hands trembled. He couldn't tell if it was from worry or from the strange, unexplainable feeling rising inside him. He didn't yet know that this woman was Diep, the very one James, his closest friend, was desperately searching for. Amid the cold, desolate mountains, fate had quietly begun to weave its thread. The man who saved Diep was the one dearest to James, and neither of them had any idea. Was this the beginning of a destined reunion, or merely fate's cruel trick? The car moved slowly along the winding road cutting through the forest. Sunlight filtered through the treetops, casting shifting shadows across Officer Lee's solemn face. In the back seat, Diep lay unconscious, her hair falling loosely over her shoulders, a small wound on her forehead still marked with dried blood. Every so often, Lee glanced at her through the rearview mirror. In his eyes flickered something different, a touch of sorrow, a trace of curiosity, and a quiet, genuine concern. He stopped at a small roadside clinic. After examining her, the elderly doctor simply shook his head. "She's fine, just exhausted. She'll wake up in a few days." Hearing that, Lee let out a long, relieved breath. As evening fell, he brought her home. His grandmother, seeing him carry a young woman in, looked both surprised and worried. "Who's this girl, Lee?" He answered softly, "Someone I found unconscious in the forest. I'll let her stay for now. Please, Grandma, keep an eye on her for me." The small room smelled faintly of fresh wood. Diep was laid on a clean bed, the blankets neatly folded. From the doorway, Lee stood watching her face, her pale lips, her colorless skin. Yet somehow she radiated a strange, quiet gentleness. He couldn't help but smile faintly before turning away. That evening, while passing through the market, Lee stopped at a women's clothing stall. "Excuse me," he said. "Could you show me some clothes for a woman in her early 20s? The shopkeeper looked at him, a neatly dressed man with a stern expression, yet his eyes revealed a hint of awkwardness. He picked up a dress, examined it briefly, then set it down again, his hand trembling just a little. "This one might suit her better," he murmured to himself. In the end, he chose 2 outfits, light-colored, simple, just like the quiet soul of the woman he had saved. Meanwhile, amid the vast mountain forest, James's black pickup truck came to a stop on a winding dirt road. He stepped out, holding a rain-worn photo of Diep, its edges crumpled and faded. His face was gaunt. Dark circles shadowed his eyes after countless sleepless nights. The mountain wind swept through, tousling his hair and revealing the exhaustion of a man running on empty, yet still unwilling to give up. He went everywhere, knocking on doors, showing Diep's picture to villagers. Every shake of the head, every sympathetic glance felt like a blade cutting deeper into his heart. But James always thanked them, always kept moving, as if stopping even for a moment would make that fragile hope vanish. By late afternoon, he stopped by the local police post, his voice low and hoarse as he asked them to expand the search to nearby areas. The elderly officer looked at him and nodded gently, and James replied only with a faint smile. "If I stop now, I'm afraid I'll never find her." On the drive back, his truck rolled quietly across the mist-covered hills. Somewhere beyond those pale clouds, perhaps Diep was looking toward the same horizon. Only now, she no longer remembered the man still searching for her day and night. When James sat down beside Hockey, Diep's little dog, his gaze lingered for a long while. "Hockey, I promised, didn't I? I'd bring her back. So why haven't I found her yet?" The dog lowered its ears and nuzzled against his hand, as if it too could feel the ache in his heart. Morning light streamed through the small window, casting a soft, golden glow across the face of the young woman lying on the bed. Diep stirred slightly. Her eyelids fluttered, her breath faint. And then, slowly, she opened her eyes. The unfamiliar room, the pale blue ceiling, the faint scent of fresh wood in the air, all of it made her uneasy. She sat up, one hand clutching her chest, her heart pounding. Her mind was blank. She didn't know where she was, couldn't remember what had happened. All she felt was that someone had saved her, had pulled her out of that dark, terrifying place. Outside, the soft whistle of a boiling kettle mixed with the hum of a ceiling fan. Those small, ordinary sounds suddenly filled her with a strange peace, a feeling she thought she'd never experience again. She set her feet on the floor, her legs trembling from exhaustion, and gripped the stair railing as she descended, one step at a time. When the door to the living room opened, she saw Lee sitting quietly with a cup of tea, his expression calm, his eyes bright, though behind them lingered an unmistakable trace of concern. "You're awake?" he asked, his voice deep, gentle, like a familiar kindness. Diep nodded softly, glancing around as if searching for answers. Lee understood and replied, "I found you at the edge of the forest. You're at my house now. The doctor said you were just exhausted. A few days of rest, and you'll be fine." Diep bowed her head slightly, her voice barely above a whisper as she thanked him. Lee looked at her, his gaze softening. "You can call me Lee. And you are?" Diep hesitated. Her eyes went blank for a moment before she answered. "You can call me Hua." A name had surfaced in her mind. She didn't know why she said it, only that it came naturally, as if her subconscious was trying to hide something. Lee nodded, asking no further questions. He simply told her to rest, his voice as gentle as if afraid to hurt her. "Miss Hua, don't worry. Stay here until you're well. When you've recovered, I'll take you home." After days of recovery, Diep was finally able to step outside. The old woman invited her to go to the market, to buy a few personal items, some clothes, a comb, a bit of thread and needles, and a handful of fresh vegetables for lunch. Diep nodded softly, slipping on the pale floral blouse Lee had bought for her. Her movements were still cautious, but there was a faint spark of life returning to her eyes. They left the house under the gentle warmth of the morning sun. The sound of Diep's slippers touched the tiled path, echoing through the small courtyard. Each step seemed to awaken the peace that had slept beneath the storms. And at that very moment, a familiar black pickup truck appeared. James's. He had come, as arranged, to meet Lee and discuss the recently closed case, and the man behind it all, John, whose crimes had left so much destruction in their wake. James stopped at the gate. He had no idea that only minutes earlier, the woman he'd been searching for had walked past this very spot. The wooden gate still swayed slightly in the breeze. The sunlight still lingered on the steps where Diep had just walked. Everything bore traces of her presence, except he could not see them. Inside, Lee poured tea. The two friends sat across from each other. Their talk centered on work, on unanswered questions from the case. The air between them was calm and serious, but beneath it ran an invisible thread, quietly tightening between two men bound by fate. When Lee mentioned the operation at the border, he suddenly remembered. "Oh, right," he said. "During the raid, I found a woman unconscious in the forest. Good thing I got to her in time. She's staying at my place now." James looked up, a flicker of hope flashing in his eyes. But when Lee added, "Her name's Hua, just exhaustion, nothing serious," that light quickly faded. He simply nodded, unaware that the woman his friend spoke of was Diep herself. Outside, the sun bathed the road leading to the market. Diep and the old woman stood by a clothing stall, choosing new outfits. Her fingers brushed gently across the thin fabric, her eyes soft, as if she were touching a dream. She didn't know that just a few steps away, in the very house she had left moments ago, the man she loved most was sitting in the same room, speaking with the friend who had saved her life. When their meeting ended, James shook Lee's hand and left. His black truck disappeared down the winding road, leaving behind a quiet courtyard and a cup of tea still steaming on the table. Not long after, Diep returned, holding a small basket in her arms. Her eyes stopped at the table, where a faint ring of spilled tea had spread across the wood. She didn't know why, but a sudden pang stirred in her chest, a fleeting ache she couldn't explain. Sometimes, fate doesn't separate people by distance or time, but by a single late moment, just half a heartbeat too slow. If he had arrived one step earlier, they would have met again. But perhaps fate still wants to test their love. One more time.